Mark chapter 7. The Pharisees gathered around Jesus. So did some of the teachers of the law. All of them had come from Jerusalem. They saw some of his disciples eating food with unclean hands. That means they were not washed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands to make them clean. That's what the elders teach. When they come from the market, they do not eat unless they wash. And they follow many other teachings. For example, they wash cups, pitchers, and kettles in a special way. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law questioned Jesus. Why don't your disciples live by what the elders teach? They asked, why do they eat their food with unclean hands? He replied, Isaiah was right. He prophesied about you people who pretend to be good, he said. These people honor me by what they say, but their hearts are far away from me. Their worship doesn't mean anything to me. They teach nothing but human rules. You have let go of God's commands, and you are holding on to teaching that people have made up. Jesus continued speaking. You have a fine way of settling aside God's commands, so you do this so you can follow your own teachings. Moses said, honor your father and mother. He also said anyone who asks for bad things to happen to their fathers or mother must be put to death. But you allow people to say that what might have been used to help their parents is korban. Korban means a gift set apart for God, so you no longer let them do anything for their parents. You make the word of God unless by putting your own teachings in its place, and you do many things like this. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him. He said, listen to me, everyone. Understand this. Nothing outside a person can make them unclean by going into them. It is what comes out of them that makes them unclean. Then he left the crowd and entered the house. His disciples asked him about this teaching. Don't you understand? Jesus asked. Don't you see? Nothing that enters a person from the outside can make them unclean. It doesn't go into their heart. It goes into their stomach. Then it goes out of the body. In saying this, Jesus was calling all foods clean. He went on to say, what comes out of a person is what makes them unclean. Evil thoughts come from the inside, from a person's heart. So the sexual sins, stealing and murder, adultery, greed, hate, and cheating come from a person's heart too. So the desire that are not pure and wanting what belongs to others. And so the telling lies about others and being proud and being foolish. All these evil things come from inside a person and make them unclean. Jesus went from there to a place near Tyre. He entered a house. He did not want anyone to know where he was, but he could not keep it a secret. Soon a woman heard about him. An evil spirit controlled her little daughter. The woman came to Jesus and fell at his feet. She was a Greek born in Syria and Phoenicia, so she begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her. It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, that was a good reply. You may go. The demon has left your daughter. So she went home and found her child lying on the bed, and the demon was gone. Then Jesus left the area of Tyre and went through Sidon. He went down to the Sea of Galilee and into the area known as the 10 Cities. Then some people brought a man to Jesus. The man was deaf and could hardly speak. They begged Jesus to place his hand on the man. Jesus took the man to one side away from the crowd. He put his fingers into the man's ear. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. Jesus looked up to heaven. With a deep sigh, he said to the man, Evada, that means be open. The man's ears were open, his tongue was freed up, and he began to speak clearly. Jesus ordered the people not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. And people were really amazed. He has doing everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf people able to hear, and he makes those who cannot speak able to talk. Mark chapter 8. During those days, another larger crowd gathered. They had nothing to eat, so Jesus called for his disciples to come to him. He said, I feel deep concern for these people. They have already been with me 3 days. They don't have anything to eat. If I send them away hungry, they will become too weak on their way home. Some of them have come from far away. His disciples answered him, there is nothing here. They said, where can anyone get through bread to feed them? How many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. 7, they replied. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. He took the 7 loaves and gave thanks to God. Then he broke them and gave them to his disciples. They passed the piece of bread around to the people. The disciples also had a few small fish. Jesus gave thanks for them too. He told the disciples to pass them around. The people ate and were satisfied. After that, the disciples picked up 7 baskets of leftover pieces. About 4,000 people were there. After Jesus sent them away, he got into a boat with his disciples. He went to the area of Dalmanutha. The Pharisees came and began to ask Jesus questions. They wanted to test him, so they asked him for a sign from heaven. He sighed deeply. He said, "Why do people ask for a sign? What I'm about to tell you is true. No sign will be given to you." Then he left them. He got back into the boat and crossed the other side of the lake. The disciples had forgotten to bring bread. Then they have only 1 loaf with them in the boat. Be careful, just warn them. Watch out for the east of the Pharisees, and watch out for the east of Herod. They talk about this with each other. They said, "He must be saying this because we don't have any bread." Just knew what they were saying. So he asked them, "Why are you talking about having no bread? Why can't you see or understand? Are you stubborn? Do you have eyes and still doesn't see? Do you have ears and still don't hear? And don't you remember? Earlier I broke 5 loaves for the 5,000. How many baskets of pieces did you pick up? 12, they replied. Later I broke 7 loaves for the 4,000. How many baskets of pieces did you pick up? 7, they answered. He said to them, "Can't you understand yet?" Jesus and his disciples came to Bethsaida. Some people brought a blind man to him. They begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand. Then he led him outside the village. He spit on the man's eye and placed his hands on him. "Do you see anything?" Jesus asked. The man looked up and he said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened so that he could see again. He saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home. He told him, "Don't even go into the village." Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, "Why do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others say one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." Just warn them not to tell anyone about him. Jesus then began to teach his disciples. He told them that the Son of Man must suffer many things. He told them that the elders would not accept him. The chief priests and the teachers of the law would not accept him either. He must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke clearly about this. Peter took Jesus to one side and began to scold him. Jesus turned and looked at his disciples. He scolded Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You are not thinking about the things God cares about. Instead, you are thinking only about the things humans care about." Jesus called the crowd to him along with his disciples. He said, "Whoever wants to be my disciples must say no to themselves. They must pick up their cross and follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the good news will save it. What good is it if someone gains the whole world but loses their soul? Or what can anyone trade for their soul? Suppose anyone is ashamed of me and my words among these adulterous and sinful people, then the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels."